was just a game that they needed to win. No matter how, just get the job done. And you're right, Coops, and it showed how close they are as a team to get in the trenches and just make sure they got the job done.
Yeah, I thought Reid Marnie's comment around how some of the leaders may have made some poor decisions in the 2 losses and they learnt their lessons. Well, their leaders were the best players at the back end of the game. Reid Marnie was terrific. Kickout, worked his backside off, had to have a go off and have a rest, come back on. I think Matt Burton has very matured into ball play. There's some talk around whether he should be in the centres. He is a running 5'8" and is starting to lead that team. So no matter what happens with Sexton or Galvin, he is your 5'8". He's starting to develop.
You're strong on that, aren't you, Coops? You just think he's got to be there 6 if they're any chance of winning the comp.
I think he's mixed on the left-hand side with kick out. He's got good movement. He's a big body. He runs the ball. And he's starting to make good decisions as a leader in terms of when to kick, when to not. And he's got that experience now under his belt. And I think it doesn't matter what happens around him, he's the 6.
Now, where have you got the Bulldogs at the moment? After that win, they had a little bit of a stumble. But where are they back on track? Are they premiership contenders?
Well, they've still got like Steve Crichton to come back in their captain, come back into the side. Defence wins competitions, and that performance tonight, particularly the second 40, the second half, was exceptional. And then, yes, they did miss some tackles, but when you think about it, you cast your mind back to last year when they had the best defensive record. Again, at the start of this year, they do miss tackles. However, their scrambling defence is enormous, and they work really hard for each other. And yeah, if they keep on that sort of trajectory, and then obviously they're really thinking about what their halves should be, and obviously getting Toby there and putting Matty Burton back into the 6, they'll get back into rhythm with their football as well, which they did have prior to young Lachlan Galvin.
Do you think they should just keep the combinations
just
they've got
keep
now?
the combinations going?
Yeah, I think they got the game style to hold up in big matches. They spent a lot of time of the season so far on top of the ladder, on the back of their defence. Their attack is humming, and all they need to do is work out the jigsaw puzzle. And Galvin is a really good player. He's going to be a rock-solid first-grade halfback in a couple of years or something like that. He may play a part, but ultimately, double down with Burton as your leadership and the decision-maker. Toby Sexton is okay, but he doesn't need to be the gun halfback that everyone wants their number 7 to be. You've got Burton, Kickout, Stephen Crichton, Connor Tracy. There's enough there. As long as they've got the best defensive team, they will play finals, and they'll
and
win some
you've seen
games.
tonight when they lost those 2 players to HIA, so all of a sudden Barley Hayward, he can play 9, he can play 13, he can play 6, which is so valuable. So he's really important 14 for them. So I mean, I think they had the mix pretty well done tonight. And then Connor Tracy, he was exceptional again tonight as well.
He's been great all year, hasn't he?
He's been a great player, and it's just his energy and the amount of work he does. He's had a couple of ups and downs in recent times, but he's been a great player for him.
Hoops, Lachlan Galvin was set to play today. He got taken out of the team late. Have you heard much, Mail, as to why, and what do you think is going to happen moving forward?
Yeah, it's a fascinating narrative, Braith, in that Lachlan Galvin was named in the 17, has obviously been featuring for the Bulldogs since he switched there from the West Tigers mid-season. But there'd been a lot of noise around about the Bulldogs' attack being clunky and Lockie's arrival, changing a winning formula and potentially being disruptive. So I think the fact that he's been left out tonight and they've won, that's a huge victory for Cameron Ciraldo, because he spoke this week. He called it ridiculous, some of the commentary around all the chopping and changing. We saw Reid Marnie punched out 80 minutes tonight, and as Mal pointed out, made 55 tackles. Well, Reid certainly wasn't happy when he got hooked a couple of weeks back to accommodate Lockie being on the interchange bench. So it's going to be a fascinating puzzle now for Cameron Ciraldo, how he fits his best 17 together, because he's got so many of these utility-style gun players, from Bailey Hayward to Jamin Salmon, who returned tonight, now Galvin, who isn't in the 17. They kept it quiet. It only started to go around late today, didn't it, that they were going to leave Lachlan Galvin out of the team. So I think they're aware of how much of a talking point it's going to be. And I think the fact that they've got the 2 points is a big win.
It is a big win. And regardless of whether they like it or not, it's going to continue to be a talking point, given the position the Bulldogs are in, the success they've had over the past couple of years and where they've landed now. They are a chance to win a premiership. It's going to be interesting, though, Coops, to see. I know, you know, we've spoken about this a lot, but after tonight's game, does it change anything? Do they leave him out now? I know you said you'd probably leave him out.
Yep.
Would you continue to leave him out, or would it depend who you're playing against or conditions, or is it just leave him out?
Look, I think there's all those things that come into play when you're a coach, but ultimately, if you want to win a prelim final, and I'll try and win a premiership, you got to have 25 players that are willing to do it, right? So he will play a role. He will play a part, whether it's 14 on the bench, 7 at some stage, he will play a role. Remember, these are the Dogs that will probably rest Stephen Crichton and a couple of others, Max King at some stage. So they will evolve that team. But if it's 4 weeks out from the finals and they still have, you know, that jigsaw puzzle moved around, I probably think he's probably out of the side, because you got to mix up what is Hayward, what is Mann, what is Curran. There's smaller bodies that if you come up against Penrith, Storm, you know, Broncos, for example, you're going to have some big bodies. They're going to have to handle the opposition.
And the reality is, Mel, they're going to have to improve on tonight's performance to compete in the finals and have a chance to win a competition. So they've got to build combinations and continuity, don't they?
Yeah, you've got to have continuity going into final footy. You've got to have momentum and you've got to have confidence. So it's important. And I still think that Lachlan Galvin can play a number of positions, depending on what Cameron Ciraldo and his coaching team want him to do. I think he can play a back row, and I think he can play 13. I think he can play maybe in the centres. So that versatility off your bench is not bad. Curtis Moran, he probably only, well, I know he got a head knock tonight, but you know, the way the modern game is going, that versatility and flexibility in positions, particularly if you start losing, you know, players to HIA or injury or whatever the case may be, having that type of player on your bench is really important. Someone that can play outside backs, as an example. If you lose an outside back, you know, what happens there with your team? Obviously, you've got to place a back row, edge back rower back into your centres. I've sort of got a view that I think you need to have someone that can actually go out there and play in the centres. You know, someone like a Matty Burton, what I did with the Aussie side. I just think that's starting to, there's a bit of a trend, I think, changing in our game a little bit when you talk about the bench, because the bench is so important.
Yeah, it is.
I think after tonight's win, and Cameron Ciraldo being a defensive-orientated coach, knowing the history of defensive teams winning the premiership, he will pick the best 17 defensive players he's got. That's their mantra. And at the moment, if they are all fit, Galvin probably doesn't fit in that. But in saying that, in a couple of weeks' time, it could easily change, depending on who the opposition is and what the injury status is of the Bulldogs.
Yeah. It shows you what an outstanding coach Cameron Ciraldo is, in that the plan post-State of Origin was always that Lachie Galvin was going to go into the number 7 jumper, but he's clearly looked at the way that the side was performing over the course of the last month since Lachie's arrival, and he's made a decision that Toby Sexton is better suited at this point in time, and then had the confidence to back himself to leave Lachie out of the 17, knowing the headlines and all the talk that will attract. It's a credit to Cameron Ciraldo the way that he's done that.
Yeah, and the connection he has with his players, because that doesn't happen, like Billy Slater at Origin, unless you've got a good rapport and a good relationship with your playing group.
He's doing a great job, Cameron Ciraldo, and the Bulldogs are in a great position heading into the finals and remain in third position after that win tonight against the Cowboys.